Welcome to the Virtuality podcast with Craig Herndon and Jason Parks. Today we have Lyron Bentovim from the Glimpse Group. He is CEO, and the biggest thing right now that I want to talk to you about is the upcoming NYVR Expo. So I know the Glimpse Group's been essential in organizing that. So what kind of part have you been played into it, and how has that played into just how you're supporting the community already?
Yeah, so it's really tied to our involvement in the expo really ties to our belief that we should be a strong part of the kind of New York community and kind of even the East Coast community for virtual reality and augmented reality. So the expo itself was conceived by my co-founder DJ Smith. He's been instrumental working with partners to kind of build the expo up. And the expo kind of gives a showcase for kind of what's happening in New York as the scene, obviously trying to kind of to build the East Coast kind of VR and AR ecosystem. And kind of we brought in companies large and small, so from kind of presence for the large players in New York to later stage startups that are kind of in New York to early stage startups, and we've created a zone for that as well.
So another thing that's interesting about the NYVR Expo is you have the startup pitch that's going. So can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so we're going to have a 2-day startup event. So the first day has 12 startups. 6 of them are more mature startups, probably kind of post-seed round startups that have raised money in the past. And the second group has companies that are more in the seed round, pre-seed round. And they will compete in front of a panel of judges. I will be on the panel, but there will be VCs and angels from the community sitting with us on the panel. Each startup will present their story in 8 minutes and get some Q&A from the judges. And at the end of that day, that will happen on Friday, and at the end of that session, we will have a more mature winner and a more early stage winner. And those 2 winners will come again on Saturday and present their story more at length. And I will have more of a Q&A session with each one of those teams about their solution and where they are. And then we will let the crowd on Saturday choose the winner of the overall.
What do they get for winning?
Well, they get to win. They'll get the respect of the community, and obviously, kind of they'll get exposed. So, in addition to the panel of VCs, we invited the who's and who's of early stage VCs in New York that are focusing on virtual reality and augmented reality, and we are actually sending all of the presentations as well to those VCs, so they get a lot of exposure and get the right to claim to be the winner. We thought about putting together some kind of a package, kind of like they usually do in those things, $5,000 of this and all sort of others, but we thought that kind of winning is enough for that.
Yeah, especially when you're a startup just trying to get your name out there, and if there's the people you want to talk to are already there, if you're bringing the investors already.
Yeah, so they'll have access to talk in front of kind of all the people that need to to listen to them. So we've actually hand-selected and invited VCs and angels that in the system to kind of come and hear those presentations.
Yep, and it's always nice to be able to say that, yeah, we did win this competition or we did win this award. I know some startups, when they decide whether or not they want to go to a conference, they try and see what they can get out of it. And anytime there's any kind of awards that can be given out that they can receive and use to promote themselves later, always kind of ups the ante on that. So did you do any pre-selection on what kind of startups led it?
Yeah, no, we actually had a pretty qualified pool of business plans. So we had to kind of say no to a few plans that we thought were actually pretty decent. And one of the things that DJ and I discussed was to send those presentations as well, even though they're not going to present to those VCs and angels, so they kind of get that exposure. So over the weekend, we've reviewed, I think it was more than 20 presentations for the 12 spots. It shows again the strength of the community and kind of how much startups are actually being developed within the area.
When did you start announcing? Because I want to say like 20. Like if people had known about it, right? If this was like the second time, then you'd have people who work around a year, and next year maybe you might get like 40 or 50. Do you feel like the announcement came out a little bit late, or you just...
Yeah, no, we're kind of, initially we thought about putting the announcement early, but the problem is with startups is people kind of apply. If we came in too early with the announcement, you'd have startups that then don't exist, and then you go through the motion of selecting something, and then they've kind of moved on or changed their plan. So we actually kind of only put that out a few weeks ago. So we didn't build that, and you're right, kind of in an event that happens kind of on an annual basis, the second, third, and fourth, people know that it's happening and want to come in. But I was very, very impressed with the quality and quantity of what we got.
Yeah, and this kind of goes through the fluidity of what it is to be an entrepreneur with what you just said, and along that, like, you'd have the experience of working with startups, so because that's kind of what the Glimpse Group is doing. So do you want to go ahead and switch gears a little bit and go into the Glimpse Group and what you are and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so the Glimpse Group is a very unique vehicle. And kind of it was formed basically almost like life learning, kind of having my own startup and working with startups and seeing the challenges that startups have. And kind of as I look at challenges that startups have, they have some kind of challenges that you can't take away from them. They need to come up with something unique that solves a problem in a different way using the technology or whatever they're trying to do. So that is a given, and they need to pull together a team that solves that problem. So you need to identify a problem, figure out a solution, and then execute on actually making that. So I can help them with that, but I can't take that away from them. The other challenge that they have, and in my view, many startups fail for, not because they don't have the right solution or the right technology or the right team, because they couldn't get funded or they couldn't figure out how to utilize their capital correctly to actually move past the next hurdle and into the next round, or they didn't know how to start a company and how to really manage that. So all of those problems are not tied to what they're doing. And what we thought was to try and create a vehicle that actually addresses those solutions while we're building an ecosystem of companies that are all focused on VR and AR. Kind of funny things, I had lunch with a VC here in Boston today, and they said that when they surveyed a bunch of startups about what they would really want, the number one thing that they wanted is people from their field that understand what they're going through, that can they can talk to and work with. And we at Glimpse, actually, it's kind of funny because that's exactly what we built on two layers. So you've got the other entrepreneurs. So you have a startup, you're part of the Glimpse family, and we can go maybe later into kind of what it makes, kind of how do you get into the Glimpse. But if you're part of the Glimpse family, there's right now we have 8 companies in our portfolio. So you have 7 other teams that are kind of all trying to solve problems in the same space as you are, and you're all working together and you're all aligned in a way. And one of the things that really I enjoyed the most from my experience over the last year and a half with Glimpse is seeing some of those entrepreneurs from multiple teams get together kind of in the late afternoon, evening, and solve one of those problems, even though they're all kind of part of different teams. And that's very powerful. And the second group is you have the more mature kind of executive team that have been in the industry for a while, understand what it is, that are giving support from a different level, or more of a mentor type of approach. And we've created this ecosystem where you've got all of that in place. And I think that's very powerful.
So typically what I see when startups, so when you have a community, like the VR community is like very close knit and everyone works to each other. So typically, people are like willing to collaborate and talk and introduce you to people. But then as more money starts coming into the industry, people start shutting their mouth a bit more. It sounds to me like you've kind of cut down that barrier by putting everyone under the same roof, working on the same problems.
Yeah.
And that's kind of makes it much easier for them to collaborate together, because if I remember our first conversation when we first met, you had basically mentioned how all the shares are distributed to where, if one takes off, everybody benefits. So I'm sure that was part of your strategy when you were looking at, how do I get people to collaborate? But it's really cool that you have gotten that to happen, right? That's a difficult environment to create.
It's very powerful, and kind of entrepreneurs as a breed are usually kind of focused on themselves and trying to build what they want to build. but we really try to build a team atmosphere where people are members of two teams. They have their own team, their own startup, what they're trying to build, but they're also part of the Glimpse team. And that gives them a second team to be at. So kind of look at a professional sports player who's playing for the team and then playing for Team USA, and they've got that kind of basically when they go play kind of for the national team, they're together with their rivals from the league, and they're fine with that. So kind of taking the same concept and bringing that into VR, everybody has their own mission. The uniqueness of our model is none of our companies compete with each other. So each finds their own territory in VR and AR where they're going after, yet they share a lot of the same technologies so they can actually help each other, but they each have different skill sets. So there are people that are really good at developing on Unity. There's people that are really good on 3D artists. There are people that are really good on the social marketing aspect. So everybody kind of puts in what they're good at and helps people out and mentors them in things that they're not as good at.
Yeah, I can definitely just see that being invaluable of just being, if you're missing an asset on your team, right? So some teams just don't have the marketer, or they don't have the best programmer, and just to be able to collaborate with others to solve the problems or get rid of those roadblocks, I think is huge.
And we have, as we evolve, multiple people that are playing kind of multiple roles. So they could actually play a role in two teams. And sometimes they have different roles in different teams. So kind of this is an experiment, and we're having fun trying to figure out how it works. So you can have someone that is running one of the subsidiaries or one of the startups, and he's also a CTO for another one, helping kind of take a concept that someone came that was not from the technical side and lead the technology evolution of that product. So kind of we're creating a lot of creative ways of kind of utilizing our resources. Sometimes as younger developers come in, they will work in multiple teams because they have a skill set that is needed across teams, but none of the teams really need a full-time person with that skill set. So they can come, be part of the Glimpse group, and contribute to 2 or 3 teams. So we've got all sort of variabilities as we kind of grow our teams and kind of find ways of utilizing the skill sets of each member of the team.
And so I noticed that you've recently completed a Series A funding round. So what are your plans, or how are you going to use that to grow?
So that kind of as you go, so we're saving the startups from the trouble of going out and raising money. So we have to constantly do that. So that's kind of so we've raised this round right now. It will give us the runway to really continue to develop the 8 companies we have, and we're working on adding company number 9. Hopefully, we'll announce that in the next few weeks if everything goes well. And yeah, it's always kind of fun to try. And we're very creative in how we're finding. So sometimes we find a team that's working on something that we bring them in. Sometimes we have an individual that we really want to have them be part of the Glimpse, and we try and figure out what area we should kind of work with them to focus on, and almost seed them in a sense to work with it. So, but the round we closed will help us get those kind of 9 companies going. Yeah. Our goal right now is to get additional funding, and kind of we'll probably do that in a two-step transaction that will eventually lead to us being a public company. So we think that kind of there is a big need out there for a pure play public VR AR company that doesn't exist right now. So if any one of us wanting to invest in VR AR, our options would be either invest in the big guys, so Google, Facebook, Samsung, but they will go up and down on the market, on politics, on what they do in their own business, and not necessarily on AR, VR. The other alternative is to invest in early stage startups, which is very risky as a one-off, and are not liquid, and most people have no access to them, because unless you know one of the founders or you're really into the angel community, you will not get access to those opportunities. So the regular kind of investor that wants to put a few $1,000s from their savings into AR, VR because they believe this technology is the next big technology cycle doesn't have a solution right now, and we think that we are positioned and well diversified to actually become that option. So the long-term goal for us is to be a public company, and what we want to do is to get some bridge financing that will give us the runway to execute on that plan over the next kind of year. So that's what we're working towards. The other kind of use as we add more, we want to open a second hub, and actually Boston is number 1 on our list right now as potential hubs. So
a question we were going to ask.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, to Boston, so that's what.
Yes. Yeah. So Boston is. So we're looking at expanding probably in 2018. And we're looking at the East Coast as where we want to expand, and Boston, given the talent and the uniqueness of the talent that's here, is our prime target right now. So hopefully as we kind of go into 2018, we will start exploring and working with the Boston VR community to see what's kind of who's here and who's doing what, and find companies that kind of fit into our profile and open a Boston hub that will be very close in sync with the New York hub.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to welcome you into our community. That's what we're here for, is to build a community to attract more people and just help the industry grow. So that would bring a whole another set of energy to just have another resource out there helping startups get off the ground. Because I've seen a lot of come up, and it's kind of like you said, that they're just missing one component or one piece. It's not like their business plan was flawed, or they just couldn't find all the pieces. And it sounds like you're that missing puzzle piece.
It's very hard. The first step of launching a startup is the hardest one. It's just like jumping into the pool, right? Once you're in the pool, the temperature hasn't changed yet. You very quickly feel very comfortable in the pool.
Yeah.
But as you go in and you want to try and get in, especially if you try and get in slow, it's very hard. So raising the first round and establishing some entity and kind of bringing together the skills that you need to have in your team is hard, especially if you need to support yourself and kind of have a family, or kind of just maintain your life and pay your rent. It's very hard to say, you know what, I'm stopping to work in this place and I'm going to go build my startup. Yet, if you go to most established sources of funding on the kind of established angels and VCs, they want to see some kind of real prototype, which there's no way you can get working over the weekend. It will take you forever and you'll always be behind. And then you've got the chicken and the egg, right? So they want you to have something that they give you even a little bit of money, you can leave your job or kind of get a core team of people that can focus full time on building this and then have it. Yet they say, well, when you have it, come show it to me.
Right.
And so that's why there's the friends and family round. But most people, unless they come from money, their friends and family don't have a lot of money. So it's kind of hard to kind of build a concept of a round on friends and family if you have not don't have access to those type of people. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that especially first-time entrepreneurs that don't have access to that network. And therefore they try and build something on nights and weekends and kind of working a day job and then having dinner with their kind of a significant other and then going to work for another 5-6 hours trying to build what they're building. And then they're always behind because 6 hours is not enough. I see the people working on our teams and they're working 14 hours a day. Full time, and they're kind of trying to catch up with this industry. So if you're doing it half time, you can't be, even if you started at the forefront of technology, you quickly get left behind, and therefore what you have is not exciting enough, and then you can't get the funding. So we're trying to find ways of finding that talent that is really passionate about what they're doing, have a very creative way of solving a problem, and for us, very important that there is a market need that they can identify right now with today's technology. It's great to have a long-term vision of where they want to go and what they want to do 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, when people are walking around with augmented reality glasses and everybody has VR at home. All that's great, but what can you do today with today's technology that someone, and mostly businesses at this point, is willing to pay for?
Like what customers have you talked to, basically?
Yeah, and where do you find something that you say, look, I can create this in 6 months, 9 months, and then those type of customers will be willing to pay to get this service, and they can use the existing headset or their current phones or tablets for augmented reality or the HoloLens or whatever is out there right now to do it. Now, obviously, as technology evolves, you have to evolve with it and do more with more. But I want to see that there is a market for what you're doing today. And each one of our companies is focusing on that. 4 out of the 8 already have revenue, and 2 more are working together, which is kind of a funny story. They're working together on a joint project, even though they're 2 companies that would have never have anything to do with each other. One is a financial services VR company, and the other is an augmented reality presentation. So they would have never really had any chance of doing, but a large financial institutions is looking for a solution that requires both sets of technologies. And because they're part of the Glimpse Group, we can put them together and make one offer without having the companies trying to argue who's going to get what and who's going to lead the interactions. And all of that is taken off. Kind of everybody's focusing on what they are, and they're going to work together on the interface, kind of taking one set of data and moving it to the platform that the other ones need.
Okay, and they can integrate with each other. That actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So the one thing that's nice about you doing AR and VR, because it applies to so many different verticals, that it allows you to have that one umbrella, but yet have a lot of verticals to diversify underneath. So are there any ones that you're like bullish on that you're looking at? Like, is there a reason you went, let's say the first one you picked, is there a reason that it was that vertical versus another, or was it just timeliness?
Well, it's timely. As you look at verticals, there's a lot of verticals I'm excited about. The one I'm the most excited about right now is financial services. Our company, MarketView VR, is making a lot of inroads with financial services, creating a virtual reality solution that addresses the needs of that industry across the board, from portfolio managers to analysts to private bankers, and a very creative solution that addresses those needs. And you can see that kind of, we were kind of at a very large financial institution yesterday, and they were just wowed by what we've created for them and what we show them. So I see that there, and then but we have customers across probably 7, 8, 9 industries already.
Yep.
And very, very diverse, from pharmaceuticals to kind of restaurants, from technology companies to financial services. And a lot of them come to us, and kind of one of the anchor piece of all of this is Glimpse Consulting Group, which is one of our companies, and it's a service companies. And in a sense, they serve two roles. One is they're at the forefront of technology, and we're constantly talking to those customers as they approach us because of our position in the industry. And basically ask the question, VR and AR is happening around us. I read this article, I saw this. What can we do with this technology? And unlike most companies that have one vertical that they're doing 360. So that whatever question they asked, their solution is we can make a 360 experience for you because that's what they know how to do. Or we can do augmented reality solution that you can look on your iPhone. We have access, and that's where we bring in the community through NYVR. And we actually have a program where we understand all of the different members of NYVR, from developers that are sitting in their basement to more established kind of companies, what they're offering, what they're really good at. And when we go meet those customers, we offer the full menu. So we're not just a Chinese restaurant or an Indian restaurant. We offer all the food, and at the highest quality, because we've got the 5,300 members of the NYVR community behind us, supporting us, and hopefully once we kind of move here, we'll have the Boston community behind us too, and we can kind of understand the skill sets. And again, it's other startups. We're part of the community. We want to work with people. We're not just working with our companies. Yep. We work with other startups, other established companies, and individuals that have skills across the board, that we bring them in and give them an opportunity to expose themselves into those kind of customers that they will otherwise not be able to get there, getting the credits and the resume that they need to really establish themselves. For us, it gives us two opportunities. One, in addition to obviously having revenue from those customers and getting the business, is we see what the customers are looking for, and then when we see something that is required constantly, we go out there and we can establish a business around that. So if we see, and kind of one of the things that we see a lot of need for is training. So we're looking on how can we create a training solution that addresses those needs as a standalone company instead of providing those as consulting services. The other thing is we get access to talent. So we actually get to battle test those developers, see what they're really doing, see how good they are, and then anyone that basically does a great job, we try and figure out how to get them involved in one of our portfolio companies as a developer. So it's a win-win for us and for the community.
Excellent. Well, one thing you said earlier was that you have a lot of startups and a lot of individuals in their homes or are entrepreneurs working 14 hours a day. What would you suggest they do? How would you suggest they move forward so that they can get out of that rut and the fact that they're stuck in such a sticky situation?
Yeah, no, it's kind of, so obviously kind of the easiest answer is to kind of send their business plan to us. We're constantly looking for really smart kind of teams or individuals that have that passion for VR. Kind of what's unique, if you look at all of our people, they're all very passionate about the technology, about the community, about being part of this emerging industry. I'm actually going to talk on the expo. I have a session on the challenges of startups and kind of the alternatives you have. Because when you look out there on what's out there, so friends and family, raising that round, it only works if you have friends and family with money. And if you have them, you probably don't need my advice to actually go get the money from them. Getting in front of angel networks is very, very challenging as more and more of those angels become institutional. And before it was, okay, kind of send your business plan, the top plans get to present, and those angels are want to write checks. Kind of as you go through that and you really talk to them, you see how little checks actually get written by those angel networks and how more and more of them are converting into a VC type of environment. And VCs are kind of, even the early stage VCs, it's a really challenging opportunity. I talked to a friend of mine who's a partner in an early stage VC and I asked him, okay, how many business plans do you get a year? He is getting 700.
Oh, wow.
How many did you fund last year? 12. Okay, so now can I say, 12 out of 700, that's kind of low odds by itself. But then when you drill down to 12, there's probably 5 of them that were funded by one of the partners in previous life. And that's an easy. Then there's 3 that were introduced by someone. If you look at the kind of the actual plans that just submitted cold call their plan to this VC and got to the point where they're invested in, that's probably 4 out of 690. That's really hard odds to beat, and there's not too many early stage VCs. One of the reasons we built the Glimpse Group is because there's a reverse pyramid of companies and money. If you look at all the VC money, it's mostly in very established VCs that are Series B, Series C, Series D, and above. Everybody's trying to kind of give Uber kind of basically 2.5% kind of convertible kind of at a discount to some price in the future $1 billion loans because they want to put the Uber logo on their website. That's not VC investments in my view. Uber is already a kind of $50 billion company. They don't need VC money. If you look at the kind of the low end of that pyramid, there's not a lot of early stage true seed VC. They have, and some of them are really good, but there's not a lot of them, and they have very limited money. Yet if you look at companies, take just the 20 that kind of heard about the NYVR Expo startup competition, they're all competing for those dollars, and that's just 20 of them that kind of heard about this competition and we see in the community a lot of companies, yet there's not a lot of money. Having been involved now with the early stage VC, VR and AR industry in New York for the last year and a half, very little of the companies I saw got funded. I saw a lot of companies that we liked, I saw a lot of companies that we didn't like. Most of those, whether we liked them or didn't like them, did not get funded. And that's one of the challenges that kind of, because you need money to move forward, unless you can afford to take a year off and kind of sit together with your co-founders and build something and then kind of show it, or you can get some money to do it, kind of that's the challenge that you have, and that's why we built the Glimpse Group to try and kind of jumpstart that. So now you're part of this platform, you have a lot of support, and we will fund your development. And when the stage is right for you to get funding kind of more strategic in the future, we will help you do that and start the process of moving some of our companies out into the real world.
I'm sure you've noticed that some startups, when they initially come to you, they have a certain set of expectations. So a VC entrepreneur relationship is almost like a marriage because you have to like each other's personality. You have to like your long-term goals for both of you, and you have to like being together and around each other because you're probably stuck for the next 10 years if it lasts that long. But most people go into a relationship with certain expectations. So are there any expectations that you see entrepreneurs have that just aren't realistic? Almost as if like common myths among the like entrepreneur community for what they expect out of a VC.
Interesting question. It's definitely kind of the relationship between an entrepreneur and a VC, and kind of I've talked to a lot of people on both sides. It's always rocky. It's one of those kind of you go talk to a successful entrepreneur and tell them, well, you've had 7 VCs invest in you, and obviously you did well for them, and you had a successful exit. Which one would you recommend I go talk to? The common answer is none of them. Seriously, kind of try that on someone that went through an exit. It's very rare that entrepreneurs finish that relationship and fall in, and they're still in love with their VCs, because the VCs have a very clear agenda. They're focused on the money and how do you exit? When do you exit? Kind of meet those milestones. The entrepreneur, they look at it as kind of their baby. They want to create something, and many times what they're missing, and that I'm getting to the answer to the question, is they're missing that understanding of what the real world is looking for. So sometimes they look at something and they say, oh, this is cool. And I have the saying, cool is not enough. Right. If something is cool and there's no market for it, that doesn't work well. So you need to kind of basically really focus on what does the market want. So in companies that are driven by R&D people, so people that are coming from the technology side, many times they don't have the understanding of the market. They might see a need and address it and kind of come up with something that's really a great, exciting use of the technology. But if there's no people out there that are interested in getting that and willing to pay for that, you've got a mismatch. And VCs are probably hardcore on the other side of that. They're really focused on show me the market. They're always kind of, you can look at number one feedback is like, okay, where is the opportunity? Where's the market? Kind of who's going to buy this thing? What are they willing to pay for this? And when you get that clash between a very hardcore numbers team, which is usually the VC side, and a kind of very creative R&D focused engineer, that clash is a problem.
One thing I've learned from our community is that there is a lot of talent out there, as I'm sure you've seen and you know, but as entrepreneurs, a lot of the times they are not sure when they should approach anyone or someone like yourself or your organization. They are unsure if they're ready. They don't know when or what is ready. So do you have some notes or thoughts about comments you can make to our community as to how they
very interesting. And kind of, so I've seen kind of, usually when you're ready, you know you're ready. If you have any doubts about if you're ready, you're not ready. So I start with that. But one of the ways to really get ready is to actually join a team that's already doing it. So everybody wants to do it themselves, and not always you need to be the founder of the startup. You can be an entrepreneur joining an early stage startup before they got funded, and obviously there's a lot of rewards in doing that. Or even joining a team that got some rounds of funding and you're still getting that kind of excitement of being part of a kind of a startup in an early stage settings. And many times that's the right answer for people that are in doubt, because to start a company and carry it on your back is a lot of work. I've done this for many years and it's still hard kind of deep into my 40s. When you're in your 20s and trying to do that and you've never done it, and I had a startup when I was in my 20s, and I wish I could transport back in time and just go run my own company, because that would be pretty cool. And I know kind of all the different things that I could have done differently and kind of navigated, and it was challenging times. It was the .com, and then we ended with the crash and there was just no financing, but I'm pretty sure that I could have done some creative things around it if I was there, but I was 29, 30 at that point in time, and it was a different world. So the advice is, don't just say, okay, it's all or nothing. I'm going to start my own company, or else I'm kind of going to go work for a large company. Find the in-between, find a startup, find a team that you really like. It's all about chemistry, that you add something that they don't have, that your skill set meets, that kind of you're the missing puzzle for what they're looking for, and join that team and kind of really learn from that experience, and then you'll be ready. This is a kind of 20-25 year cycle. There'll be a lot of opportunities for people in VR and AR.
I like that. So if you're not 100% sure, go get some experience. Excellent.
Or find someone who has experience and work with them.
Exactly.
Do you know of any other company out there that's even doing something remotely similar to what the Glimpse Group's
doing? To the best of my knowledge, no. We're unique. I hope kind of 15 years from now people will say, oh, we're doing a Glimpse model. Because I think the model makes sense. We're kind of still learning as we're kind of exploring and how to work it and how to get it done. but there's the synergies between the teams and the synergies between the teams and the executive team. So you don't need to have a CFO for each team. You don't need to specialize in marketing. You can focus on what you're good at and let others do it, creating some shared economics but still have some economic upside for your own company. I think that model makes sense. I think it takes the best of kind of multiple models that are all successful by themselves. Accelerators and incubators are great, but they usually have an endpoint, and usually you still have to deal with the kind of the load of kind of getting yourself to the next round. Here, kind of you're getting that for a longer period of time. It's not for everyone, but I think kind of it's a cool model, and I think if we execute well on it over the next few years, there'll be others trying to do it in other industries as well.
Yeah, so, all right, so once it's modeled, first talked about it here. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you've been on any other podcasts.
No, you guys are my first podcast. We've talked to people about it, but you guys have a first here.
Oh yeah, you heard it, everybody. Actually, I have a fun question that we like to ask. Room, desk, or car? Which do you clean first?
Ooh, let's see, kind of probably the car. That's the easy one. The car, there's not a lot of mess in the car. The room, that's like once every couple of years, usually when I'm in between the kind of activities and I actually get to kind of redo my room and move it around. And my desk, I try and keep relatively clean, and every now and again on like a Friday afternoon, I'll kind of move some stuff over and kind of fix it.
The desk is already clean.
Okay.
Yeah, but the car is number one on the list, yeah. I hate messy cars, unlike my wife. Hopefully she doesn't listen to the podcast.
Give it a nice wax.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you particularly enjoy doing? You know, on the side, like are you a snowboarder or a skier? Is there any sport? Anything
long distance running.
Oh, you like to run it? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
Have you done
a couple of half marathons a few weeks ago,
Nice.
and kind of harder to do when you don't get to run over the week. So kind of given my schedule, it's kind of impossible to run during the week. So I only run on the weekends. But I did two, and actually did back to back for the first time. So it wasn't the best times I've ever had, but kind of I enjoyed the challenge. The other thing I used to do kind of is coach soccer. I coach both my son and my daughter.
Oh, very nice.
Now they're older. Kind of I'm waiting for my grandkids, but that's kind of that's a few years out.
What's your opinion on the USA team not making?
Oh, that was a disaster. Kind of, it's just kind of, when you look at the pool, and it's not kind of, you have like large countries like India or China where soccer is not as common, so they have 1 billion people and they can't make it to the World Cup. Soccer here, and I've kind of been through the system, and I've coached my kind of, my son and daughter since they were kind of kindergartners, is very ingrained. Most of the kids, both boys and girls, at the early age, at least and I did it both in California when I lived and in Jersey, are getting exposed to soccer and playing soccer, and soccer is being played very competitively on club level and high school level across the country. And we've got a few 100 million people that are into it. Yet for the US not to have a team that can beat some of the countries that have a couple million people without the infrastructure that we have here is very, very discouraging.
Yeah, so do you think soccer teaches any skills that kind of prepare someone for being a startup later?
Yes, actually it does. Soccer, when I coach soccer, it's all about building a team. Soccer is a team, and you take the best player in the world, kind of probably Messi or Ronaldo right now, and put them in a mediocre team with people that are not kind of, they won't do as good. They get the ball and they can do one-on-one some things, but they won't win. A well-coached team, and kind of that was my philosophy, and I really kind of taught my players to play with each other, understand everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and work toward that within a system. Where you've got creativity, you get the ball, you need to think about something creative to do, and then everybody else, in a sense, need to react to your creativity. So if you're kind of going in a different direction than where the ball is going, and the player with the ball sees that and reacts to what you did, which was creative, and give you the ball, that's kind of how you kind of succeed. And there's definitely a lot of similarities between coaching a startup and coaching a soccer team.
So you have children yourself, so is there anything that you would tell parents whose kids are like 11 to 18 right now, what the kinds of things that you think they should get involved in or should be a part of to try and get kind of those kinds of skills to be ready to run their own company?
Obviously, kind of staying on top of technology, which is not a challenge for kids of this generation. Being involved in team activities and really getting to learn how to work with others. It's very easy in today's environment to be kind of siloed and just kind of do your own thing, and especially with technology now allowing you to kind of really kind of spend a lot of time socially but not with people. So it's about working with other people and really spending time in activities with other kids, and take initiatives and support your kids taking initiatives. So figure out what they're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is. And support them taking initiative and trying to make something out of that. Because once you're passionate about something, and kind of if I look at successful entrepreneurs that I've met across, they're all passionate about what they're doing. I've yet to find one that was not passionate. Doesn't matter what it is, and if I might be the only person that thinks it's passionate. If I'm passionate about something, I'm more likely to succeed in it than if I'm not.
And as an example for those that, the thing my son's passionate about isn't worth anything, that's, I'm sure, what a lot of the current esports players out there, parents thought of. They're just playing video games, they're wasting time. And now some of them are millionaires from just doing what they're passionate about.
Yeah, and that's true for across all other things. Whether you're a football player or a rapper or kind of an esport player or kind of someone kind of really understands social media and kind of constantly on Twitter, all of these are skills you can convert into success down the road. So it's not about what you do and trying to funnel the kids into what you as the parent think is right for them. It's about finding what they're passionate about, because if they're passionate about it, they really will get into it and they're more likely to succeed in it.
And as a second note for everyone else listening is that if you do have a passion that you're currently not doing because you have a job that pays more or whatever it is, just try and do it on the side and just kind of build out, because if you do what you're passionate about, chances are you're very least you're going to meet other people in a community and just be able to learn from them. And like for me, as soon as I got involved with Boston VR, like I've been getting up in the morning right away because I have plenty of things to do. You know, I have my day job, I have Boston VR, I got this podcast and all these things, and I just get to meet so many people who are also passionate about the same things I'm passionate about. And all it took was doing that first step of just trying. So I originally, like how I got involved with Boston VR is I was working on a game with my friend, which is the current company, Digital Precept, that we're working on together. And I wanted, in Memphis, the Memphis game developers, he is able to like use that group and community. It's only like 20 or so people, but they're all very passionate. They get together and they work on things. They're able to build off of each other. So I wanted something like that in Boston. And Boston does have the Unity group, and they had Boston VR. But when I looked at those two, I was like, but I want one specifically for Unity, specifically for VR, specifically for developers. So I went to a Boston VR meetup, announced that, and immediately got pulled into Boston VR. And now I'm here.
And my story is extremely similar.
And that's very good advice. Is once you have something you're passionate about, engage in it. Don't kind of let life get in your way of doing what you're really passionate about, and find like-minded people. And the meetup system allows you to do that. Kind of before it was hard. Kind of imagine kind of before that existed and before technology, how do you find people that are kind of passionate about this thing? Everybody was sitting at home doing their own coding and not engaged, and suddenly you have a chance to really engage with people, find things that you can help them, they can help you, learn from each other, and build, and then kind of startups emerge from that. Kind of people get to know each other and understand where the strength, and just figure out that they have similar passion, and then they go out and then they build a dream out of it. So you don't need to say, okay, I want to go start a startup right now. Kind of go engage with your community, talk to people, and maybe you'll find yourself in a startup kind of without even trying to do that.
Excellent. Now, are there any particular VR experiences or games that you like? Or
I don't play as much VR games. I'm kind of focused more on kind of utilization and trying to see kind of what's cool. I think the social VR experiences are very, very strong. I've tried kind of all the ones that are kind of that are out there, and just kind of being able to kind of to really feel presence with other people gives you that power over it. So I like the social VR. Kind of for me, the more presence you have, the more wow you have. So you can create a lot of cool graphics, but if the sense of presence doesn't work, it's broken. It's just kind of it's just a start.
That's very true. It's good to hear that alt space is still around and that they'll be here.
That was a sad day when they announced that they're going to shut down, but then it turned out for the best.
So Bruce Wooden was very involved in like the VR communities all around when he first started, and got to know the people in Boston VR really well. So like when it went away, we did like a so long friend kind of thing at Boston VR, and so that was then the next month is like, by the way everyone, they're actually back, and now this month, so it's 3 months in a row. So now we're at the end of the trilogy. Oh, by the way, they're bought out by Microsoft. So
how to get a good PR, I guess. You always have something in the news.
Yeah, it was from like people can't go to the work because the doors are locked, to being bought out. Like that's a crazy turnaround, and a lot of it was just the community reaching out, and there was like huge outcry.
It's definitely the power of community and kind of all the messages that are on the Twitter network, and kind of everybody was like feeling it, and people said, oh, people actually value this part of the community, and obviously kind of that alerted the right buyers.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of speaks for the kinds of experiences that people have had in social VR, and like how that's going to play into how we experience VR going forward.
Yeah, I think social VR really shows us where VR is going to go. Kind of, I think we need a few more hardware cycles to really get that to where it will be. Yeah. But the Ready Player One kind of world will happen, not with the negative pieces of it, but kind of people will be creating worlds. I think the kind of, when you do the math, the economies of it makes total sense. If you look at how much money we're spending on travel right now, and most of that money goes into things we don't need. Kind of the most expensive thing is a flight. Kind of that's the last thing you want, but you're paying most of the. If you look at the cost of a trip, most of it is for the flight. The second is the hotel, which you don't really need either. Yeah. You rather sleep in your own bed. So and kind of for the actual stuff, you're paying very little. So imagine being able to kind of go anywhere in the world, in real world, historical worlds, fictional worlds, and experience those with the people you want to experience for a very limited period of time. So you don't need to go commit yourself for a whole week and kind of work gets in the way and so on, and everybody's schedule is different. You can go and spend 4 hours in ancient Rome or in modern Paris or in some fictional world, having fun with your friends and family, doing what you like, interacting with a lot of AI characters, and I think AI is going to be big featured in VR, and then going back and taking the headset off, and you're back at home. So kind of that will free up a lot of money, and therefore a lot of that money could be spent on those experiences and to help build them. So I think that's kind of eventually will be the killer app that will get consumers into VR.
Do you have a favorite headset?
So right now my favorite headset is we just got last week the developers headset on the Microsoft multi-reality, and it's definitely showing kind of the next evolution. Until now, kind of HTC Vive was my favorite, and because it gave you a sense of presence and be able to walk around and really feel things and be a part of wherever you're at. And this headset has taken that to the next level. The quality of the graphics is better. You don't need to set up as much as you need for a Vive. Yep. And it's very easy plug and play. It's actually cheap, which will actually allow it to potentially be very successful kind of in this holiday season. Yeah. And I'm looking forward because rumor has it that the Samsung one is the best one from the Microsoft one, and I haven't been able to get my hands on that one. So I'm looking forward to try that as well.
Yeah, as someone who's goes to a lot of places, setting up demos and everything, the not having to do as much setup, because right now like we're lugging around suitcases to show off VR to people, like it's just this giant thing, whereas like with where you're talking about the MR headsets with Microsoft, you just bring your headset and the 2 controllers. Yeah, like you don't need all the other stuff in the tripod.
A laptop, a headset, and 2 controllers, and you plug them in, it works. And that takes demoing, and we've done our share of demos, and kind of you go to a client and you need to come half an hour before the meeting to set up, and it just makes it a big deal, which actually kind of pushes the client to, maybe I don't want that, do I know how to do this? When you come in and plug it and it goes, that's a big deal.
Like you said before, that's getting closer to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where AR is already headed. It's just put it on your head and let's go. Whereas VR, we're just like waiting for it to be wireless. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about I forget the name of it, the wireless that's coming out for the Vive.
The TP-Cast?
Yep, I'm really excited about the TP-Cast when that comes out.
I've heard, I haven't tried it, but I've heard mixed reviews.
Me too.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
On latency, and latency kills presence.
Yep.
So it makes you sick and kills presence, and that so we'll see when we get it. We'll obviously we're trying to get our hands on any technology that's out there that we think is worthy, but yeah, I'd love to get rid of the cables.
Yeah.
I every now and again I'll go in the morning and before everybody's there and try on some VR experiences, and multiple times I found myself tangled in my own net. So definitely getting rid of the cables would be a big positive if you can do it with keeping quality and no latency.
Excellent.
All right, so I think we're near the end of the show, and I just want to thank you for coming on.
It's been my pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully we'll continue to connect the communities. And I look forward at some point to coming and talking in front of the Boston VR team.
Yeah.
And seeing how to build that bridge between New York and Boston.
Jason, do you have anything?
Yeah, also, I know we mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but what is the best way for any entrepreneurs or anyone in our community to reach out to you?
Yeah, best way is to email me, it's Lyron@theglimpsegroup.com, very easy. I will review every email or comment or business plan that I get, and I'll give real feedback, and maybe you'll find yourself part of the Glimpse team at some point.
Excellent. We'll also include that into the show notes as well, so for those listening, you can just check out our description. You'll be able to find it there as well.
All right, this has been another episode of Virtuality Podcast. We'll see you in this reality.
Or the next.